Okay, welcome to my wormery, everyone. Today we're going to be giving the worms a special treat. You could see this started going bad in the refrigerator, so I hacked it up into pieces, and it's going to be the worm food today. So we're going to get right on to feeding, but check this out. Can of worms. Don't get me started on that topic. You'll just be opening up a big can of worms if you do. Alright, so let's get the camera fixed on where the bins are going to be, and let's get feeding. Alright, so we're going to begin with the oldest of my material. This is material that's already more or less finished the composting process. So I've actually, I really do consider this as finished compost at this point. And this is just a horizontal migration that's trying to get the worms to move out of the compost. Now the last time we went in here, we did a similar probe down into the material, and I think it was this bin where we pretty much found no worms whatsoever. I think we've more or less confirmed that these castings are evacuated entirely. I saw not one worm in it. So it's done, and it doesn't require sifting. It's good to go as it is. Pretty much just pull the worms out and we're good to go. I love it. This is the way to do it. All that sifting I've done in the past, that was just, seems like such a waste of time in hindsight. So I'm just going to pull off some of this dry leafy material off the top. Make a little room so we can drop in the new food. Just take another closer little look here to see how the population is doing. Okay. Everything looks really good here. There's a variety of different types of material in here, remains of the food they've been getting, cardboard, paper, leaves, different types of bedding material for them to hang out in. So let's get some food in here for them. Also got some coffee grinds here. Drop in some coffee grinds. Itsy bitsy bite-sized material for their little mouths. And then we could, these pieces are fairly large. I don't remember how many I had intended for each bin. I'm going to be generous. I'm just going to go ahead and lay it in there nice. Let's just get all this stuff back where it was. I really don't think that this is going to be resting as high as it is right now once the worms get to work on that melon. Good. Let's move this aside and get the next bin out. Okay, so these were both compost bins set up to really just give the worms a chance to exit the vermicompost. Both of these bins have been sitting around for about 5 weeks now. But from what I remember, this material was not yet fully evacuated. There were still quite a number of worms cruising around in it. Why don't we go ahead and do a similar assessment on the readiness of this material. I went ahead and I scooped it out and I moved it over into the feeding zone. So what I'm seeing here is quite a difference from the other day, from when I scooped around down in here to pick out the large remaining food chunks. There were lots of worms cruising around in this material that day. That was just a few days ago. I didn't film that. I am seeing worms here and there, but they're really just, you know, here and there. But it's not like the other bin where there was just no worms whatsoever. So I'm going to treat this bin as still needing just a little bit more time. Very good. Stuff looks really good. Let's just make a little space in the feeding zone. Drop in a few hunks of melon. So I'm just going to pull this dry stuff off the top. Those hunks of leaves. Activity in here, in the feeding zone. A piece of banana. Yes, wow. Just some pieces of melon skin. You could still see the pitted surface. But any sort of fleshy material on that cantaloupe that was still on there last week is history. Just a thin sheet of skin, which they will eat as well. They will eat everything. It's pretty cool. All right. Everything in this bin looks really awesome. All the worms are exiting the compost, coming over to the feeding zone, and I would say that within another week or two, this bin's going to be ready for harvesting as well. And I really don't want to, you know, expand anymore on my existing worm farm. I think I have just the right number of bins running right now. I don't want to expand any further, so I gotta come up with some ideas. Been thinking of putting an ad on Craigslist and seeing if anybody in the area would want to come by and adopt some of them for a modest charge. Used up coffee. I can put all this stuff right back on top. That was my one complaint from my last video. I didn't really assess each bin individually to give myself a sense of what was needed the next go around. So as far as the first bin was concerned, that's ready for harvesting immediately. This bin is going to be ready for harvesting, I would say, in about a week's time, so very soon. So we'll put these guys back on the shelf and get the next bin out here to be fed. Okay, so while those first two bins that we were dealing with I treat as more or less finished compost, which is really just in a depopulating phase right now, I'm treating these as active bins. That's why I've transitioned in these bins over to a horizontal feeding pattern, and that's why the feeding zone is on the very edge. Yeah, you'll see right away there's a fair number of worms in this material still. Although if you were to just assess the material on its own, here too it's very fine. It's pretty much all castings. There's just bits and pieces of food particles here and there. So I really wouldn't be surprised if these bins would also be ready for harvesting soon. Let's get another peek at what's happening down here. Yep. Good active bins. And the material's really coming along nice as well. Let's go ahead and create a little space where we can give these guys a little bit of watermelon treat. I could feel with my thumb as I'm reaching down here to get some of the leaves off the top that they're still, here we go, plenty of corn cobs left for them. Okay. Let's take a little peek at how the worms in this bin are doing. Very content. They've got plenty of food. Working their way through some chestnut. You see some of the leaves and stuff that I threw down for them. Okay. I think the worms on this one are doing pretty good as well. And they are starting to congregate here in the feeding zone, as one would expect them to. So we will give them some coffee. Hunks of corn, a couple hunks of melon. What a treat. Except they're not going to like it much in the very beginning since it's frozen solid still. If there was any sort of a moisture deficiency in these bins, there's not going to be one. It's almost like I poured a cup of water into each of these bins. Okay. Just been leaving it open like this so that this side can evaporate and that side can stay a little juicier and moist. Okay. So as we move from bin to bin, we keep getting into older and older bins. I mean, not older and older, but newer and newer bins. Okay. So as we proceed, we keep working our way from the oldest bins to the newest bins. So these bins have only been around a little while. They're from August. So they're about two months old at this point. And you know what? Let's do a quick assessment of the material as long as we're here before we get to the feeding. Worms here and there already. I haven't even dug very deep yet. Like the last bin we saw, this one still has a fairly sizable worm population throughout. If you just scoop around, you'll find worms pretty much everywhere within the compost. So, and let's give them some melon. Okay. Things are looking mighty busy over here. The worms going to town on the food they've been given so far. It's funny, in the last video I referred to this stringy vegetable as something I didn't really know how to identify, but it occurred to me that this was all those tomato clippings, those trimmings of the tomatoes after I did some pruning that I had fed them with a few times ago. But for whatever reason it didn't register that that's what that was. But only after I watched the video again I noticed that, yeah, okay, that's the old tomato that I had torn up, or that I had trimmed out in the garden. Here too you can see some leaves on the bottom, still even kind of dry in some places. Okay, looks pretty good. Okay, we're down to 3 more bins. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 more slices. So I guess we've got to ease back on how much we're feeding. This must be a banana peel. Alrighty. So these guys, those are pretty big ones. Let's mix it with a small one. Okay. Very good. Two more bins to go. These last 2 bins were launched on the same day, September the 19th. Something like 5 weeks ago. So in the beginning I'll feed like in the middle section like this, and then we'll switch over later to horizontal migration style feeding. Okay. Okay, so in the middle zone here we've got all kinds of stuff. Here's some remains of cantaloupe melon, more corn cob everywhere, plenty of corn cob. So as you dig down, I believe you're going to find a lot of worms underneath the feeding zone. It's the place to be. Very cool. More corn. Let's see what we have over here. More worms now. Okay, give these guys a couple slices. Some corn, some coffee. All right. Let them get back to work. Just an assessment of how the material is breaking down. I guess we can take a peek out here on the side somewhere to get a sense of how things are looking. So it is converting nicely over, so it's pretty rich in casting material, but it's also, as you saw, pretty rich in not yet broken down material as well. So let's bring all this stuff back over. Cover up the feeding zone. Definitely be curious to see how long it takes for them to rip through these melon chunks. I got a feeling it's going to go quick. Okay, last bin. These 2 bins have perforations, and since this one is on the shelf right beneath the other one, I guess it gets rained on a little bit when the worms start to poke their heads out a little bit in curiosity to see what's outside the bin. That's the one got you with these little shallow bins, is that when you try to push things up to the edge, you find yourself really limited on space. Alright, what's this? Huh. Okay, I threw this stuff in all together, like in a little frozen chunk, like a frozen mass, and it's got that kind of apple-y smell to it, like it's fermenting apples or something. Okay. Sticks. All right, so that stuff didn't look like it was really getting that consumed, so maybe it's not their cup of tea. Well, it eventually will be, but I guess in the beginning it's not really the sort of stuff that they're swarming around. I still don't see any real hot spot. Oh, what do we have here? Oh, I think I just hit the hot spot. And I just tore the apple in half. What was apparently, before I stuck my thumb in it a moment ago, looks like it was the apple that was holding up and remaining as a whole. So this is about half of it. I think I tore the other chunk of it and pushed it over to the side. This is a banana peel. So a lot of the food from the previous feeding in here is still clearly identifiable. It's more. Oh, this is that cork. So here too, I could see. This feels like an area where they might have really enjoyed whatever food was resting right above. Because here there's more worms than there were on the other side. Okay. This bin's looking pretty good as well. All right, so let's dump in these last few bits of food for these guys and call it a day. Yeah, they're gonna love this. And then leave the rest for later. Well, that's about it for today, folks. So let's call it a day. I'll put everything away here, and you guys don't need to stick around for that. So I'll bid you farewell now. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate your company. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up. Let me know you liked it, or throw a comment in there and let me know your thoughts. But that's it for now, everyone. Have a great day, and thanks again for coming. Bye now.